My name is Ollison. I have a PhD in environmental health. So what does that mean? It means when I come to work every day, I'm looking, put the renewable energy side for a bit aside. I do things, air quality assessments, weather standards for emissions from power facilities, contaminated sites, those type of issues, making sure the protection of public health as we're looking through that. And about almost 10 years ago now, I actually got a phone call asking about wind turbines and health. And that we needed a section on wind turbines and health for an application that was actually in Ontario. And I said, well, they don't emit anything, it can't be an issue here. And then that's led to 10 years of research and doing a lot of work like this and various community meetings. So just by way of background, I'm a private consultant, so I have my own consulting company. I do work for various wind developers. I've also worked for the state of Vermont, the Public Services Department there in siting and wind energy development. Worked a lot in various states right across the U.S. I've appeared at a number of planning board meetings like this on wind ordinances and the like, and everything right up through to court cases. So many state hearings and the like. And the research that and you'll see a number of other names here, these are other colleagues that I've worked with over the years, is we've been doing research on what is an appropriate sound level or siting guideline for wind turbines. You certainly can't put these things too close to people's homes. Now, I recognize that you guys heard from Steve Ambrose, I believe about a month ago or so. Everything I tell you tonight, Steve and I have two very different opinions. So I don't envy you as board members, right? You get very two different opposite opinions on this issue, depending on who you talk to. So what I'm going to walk you through tonight is the science behind where we believe a proper siting guideline is, what a proper sound level is, what a proper setback distance is. So I'm going to walk you through that and give you the sources of information for that, and happy to answer questions. So these are just the various peer-reviewed publications that I've had over the years. So if I was talking to you folks back around 5 years ago or so, there wasn't all that much information that was published on wind turbines, health, and noise. In fact, back in 2011 when we wrote our first review paper on this, there were more or less 15 kind of key articles. In the last 5-6 years, there's been a lot of study around the world, a lot of study in Europe, a lot of study in Canada, and study in Australia, some study here in the US as well, on what constitutes a properly sited wind project, health impacts, and what we have to do to avoid. So we now have over 80 papers. There's somewhere between 80 and 100 papers now. And not all those papers are created equal. You've got to take that weight of scientific evidence, you've got to take all those papers, read through them, like Rob said, good nighttime reading to try to get yourself to sleep, and then look at that evidence collectively as a whole as to what then makes sense in order to protect public health. So what are the concerns? I mean, you folks have heard them, right? The audible noise, the noise we can hear Rob walked you through, the low frequency noise, infrasound, shadow flicker, EMF from the lines, ice throw, blade flare. When Scott asked me to talk to you folks about it today, it was mostly stick to the noise side. We're going to talk a little bit about ice throw. So I don't have slides on the others, but certainly if we want to later on, we can talk about those. So where do the questions on health impacts come from? And you folks have heard a number of these different terms, and like the wind turbine syndrome, coined by Dr. Nina Pierpont in her self-published book. Vibroacoustic disease is another one that often comes up as a potential issue, and this is where the low frequency is infrasound and claims about potential health effects there. The challenge with this is, just like everything else on the internet, it doesn't necessarily make it the case. So when you don't just have to trust me. I'm going to take you through some of the other government agency reviews, some of the other independent reviews that have been done. If we look at, for example, wind turbine syndrome, if we look at vibroacoustic disease, these things have been actually adjudicated in a number of hearings across North America, actually around the world. There's been a number of reviews done. And in 2012, Massachusetts Department of Health and the Department of Environment commissioned their own independent study. So they had a professor from Harvard who led up the review panel, Boston, MIT, and the like, and they had this international, a more or less Massachusetts-based group of experts, academics, looking at this issue. And this is a quote from the executive summary of that report. And that is that there's no evidence for a set of health effects from exposure to wind turbines that could be characterized as wind turbine syndrome. So does that mean we don't have to worry about wind turbines at all and where we place them? No, it doesn't. Noise is an environmental contaminant, defined by the EPA as an environmental contaminant, just like arsenic, just like you know, some of the emissions from coal-fired plants, it is a pollutant. That's why we regulate it, okay? And if we don't, you can get into some significant issues. Now, wind turbines, you know, it used to be people would make the claim, well, it doesn't impact hearing. Well, you need to be very high in, you know, occupational settings, and for any of you that are farmers and that, and you're out with a tractor and that, you need really high levels of sound to impact hearing loss. So nobody would claim that wind turbines do that. This is the key one though. It's the sleep. We do need to, anytime we're regulating environmental noise, whether it comes from a gas-fired plant, whether it comes from a coal plant, whether it comes from a wind turbine, the objective there is to try to make sure the levels are low enough that people are getting a good night's sleep. You guys all know that if you've gone through a period of time where you're not sleeping well, and this is, you know, these are projects that are going to be up 20, 30 years. If you're not sleeping well for a couple days, things just start going bad. If you're not sleeping well over a long period of time, it can lead to all sorts of very negative health impacts. So that's the goal that we're looking at there. And that's why we have to properly say these. I'm going to spend a bit of time here on the Health Canada study. The reason, yeah, and I'm from Toronto area of Canada, but the reason I'm talking to you about the Health Canada study mostly here is that it's the largest study of its kind. It's been done around the world. And they conducted it between 2012 and 2014, basically because of the same challenge to face with you folks on trying to, what is going on with the health impact side, what is a proper use of wind power. Okay, so they surveyed over 1,200 people, and these people lived as close as 820 feet and out to 7 miles from wind projects. Okay, there's 12 wind projects, 2 provinces in Canada, most comprehensive study. So they spent over $2 million on my taxpayer dollars doing it, which was a good thing. Okay, so what they asked him, and when you do these types of sound, when you're asking about sound and health, often it starts and ends with self-reported questionnaires. So you give somebody a questionnaire, a detailed survey questionnaire. It takes them about 2 hours or so to fill out. And this is all self-reported, how they're feeling, health impacts and the like. But for the first time ever, what Health Canada did, and the government scientists that did this, they actually did objective measures of health, so actual physical measures of health. They did a sleep study. So they fitted out just over 700 of these people for a week with what's called an actimeter. Kind of looks like a Fitbit. It's a wristwatch that people wear when they're sleeping. And it gives you a very detailed and accurate account of your sleeping, your awakening, how your sleep patterns are. Okay? They also did hair cortisol. So for those men, not every guy in the project could, in this research could actually participate because you actually had to have hair. So you took hair samples and then you measured cortisol for that. And that's an indicator of stress. So you can take hair cortisol levels and then you can measure back what the stress was in those individuals over a period of 3 months or so. And they also took pressure readings as well. So they did all of this, and the overall conclusion to emerge is that there was no evidence of an association between wind turbine exposure and the prevalence of self-reported or those measured health effects. And this study had sound levels up to 46 decibels. Okay, so what Rob was talking about, the dBA, I know when you're looking at your ordinance and what you're trying to do for putting in your rules, this study found that, again, living as close as 820 feet, sound levels of 46 decibels, and they just didn't have turbines set any closer to go over 46 decibels, so that's why it's cut off at 46 decibels, is that they did not see these health impacts. And I'm going to spend just a little bit more time. So let's talk about sleep. So we're not going to go through this fancy graph over here other than to say, so they took all of their findings and they published them in an international scientific journal on wind turbines and health. Okay, so there's 8 papers or so that have come out of this study, all been peer-reviewed by other experts. And what they did was they broke up, and this is very similar for all studies on health and wind turbines. These are the various sound levels, 25 to 30 decibels, 30 to 35. So they grouped them, and as I say, it went up to 46 decibels here. What they found was, this is the sleep study, and this is a direct quote from the paper. So there's no association between. So if you're up to 46 decibels, they weren't seeing people being awoken or sleep disturbance having wind turbines as loud as 46 decibels and 820 feet from people's homes. We're going to get into it at the end. I'll give you kind of my view on what those levels should be. Just right now I'm going to tell you about what some of the others have studied. This is a study, you'll see Aja Pedersen is a famous researcher out of Europe who has probably done the most research on wind turbines and health and annoyance. And so she runs a research group. This is the Backer paper from 2012. And what this is, so they had sound levels up to 54 decibels. You're often going to hear that in Europe they have sound levels of 35 or 30 or 28. No, I mean, a lot of the projects in Europe are actually located quite a bit closer with higher sound levels. In this case, it was up to 54 decibels. And what this graph here, or this chart here is that this comes from their paper. And what they asked was, you know, and again, so rural Netherlands. So let's just focus on this. Nobody cares about the people living in the city. So on the rural side, this was how often was your sleep disturbed in a month, that you woke up more than once a month, not just to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, that you were woken from a noise source. And they had 70% of the people living in rural Netherlands around wind projects said, I don't wake up at all, not woken by anything. 12% woke up because of people or animal noise, 12.5% by traffic or mechanical sounds in rural Netherlands, and 6% from the wind turbines. So is it that you're never going to be woken up, or potentially not to be up to 54 decibels? You could be, but again, it's within a lower level than the other sources of noise that are waking people up already in the rural Netherlands. So that's important to kind of put it into perspective. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. This is what Rob was talking about before, the World Health Organization guidelines. You guys are actually not alone. The state's still trying to figure out what they want to do here for sound guidance in New York. There's a debate going on right now at the state with the Article 10 process and the applications that have been filed as to what the right number is. Is it 45? Is it 50? Is it 40? And what we've seen so far, and we know that the Avangrid's going to have to do for this project, Rob talked to you about the modeling that he does for a nightly kind of worst case basis, and then he's got the modeling that he has to do over the course of a year. The reason that's come up is Department of Health is actually now asked on a number of projects, including for the Avangrid project just recently, that we look at it both ways. That we evaluate 45 decibels on the World Health Organization guidelines on that modeling side that Rob does on a worst case nightly average. And that comes from this document. The reason why they're asking for that is that there's good science, and you see the Health Canada, remember the Health Canada number also lined up with 46 decibels. We weren't seeing sleep disturbance around wind turbines. That's what this 45 number. So we're going to have to evaluate, Rob and his team are going to have to model to make sure that we're 45 decibels or less. The other number that gets thrown around a lot is this 40 decibels. The challenge to this 40 decibels is it's not a nightly number, it's over the course of a whole year. So, and it's again, not specific to turbines, it's any noise source. So what they're saying is that in order to make sure that we get good, long sleep over the course of the year, you know, not woken up once in a while, is we'd like to see a target of 40 decibels or less. Now, the challenge to that is that this 40 decibels, they actually have an interim target of 55 decibels, because most areas you're not going to have a 40 decibel nightly average. Certainly not in urban areas. Now, I recognize this isn't a rural area, and the levels are going to be lower here than they are going to be in Albany, but that's what this 40 decibels is for. So the project is going to have to evaluate both of these, okay? And that's been agreed to by Avangrid and frankly all the other wind developers in the state. So we're really waiting to see where the state comes down on. So on the load, on the audible side, I would put you to 45 decibels, which is what Avangrid's looking at, designed here, and frankly all the other developments that I know of that's being proposed for New York. It used to be 50 decibels in New York. 1,000 megawatts that you have in the North Country here, the turbines that have been up for about the last 10 years and coming, most of them, if not all those projects, were regulated at 50 decibels. Now there's nobody that I'm aware of right now in New York that's trying to propose anything more than 45. And it seems to be consistently 45. And I think if we look at the international research, that's supported. So let's talk about the low frequency noise and infrasound. As Rob said, are they emitted from turbines? Some wind developers somewhere back a number of years ago, somewhere said to somebody, no, there's no such thing as infrasound. And that's sparked this whole thing where people were saying, well, the wind industry doesn't emit to infrasound and low frequency noise. There is low frequency noise and infrasound emitted from turbines. As Rob told you, he was measuring in the room earlier today, we're somewhere about 50, 60 decibels on the infrasound side in the room. These are not, infrasound low frequency noise is not unique to turbines. It's in the room right now, it's all around us. So the question is, are they emitted at levels, and would they be at people's homes at a level that could pose health effects? I'm going to walk you through why I'd suggest that that's not the case. Okay? You can have health effects from low frequency noise and infrasound, but it's just at a much higher level than what you'd ever see. And often you'll hear, well, there's no guidelines for that, we're not regulating it. So what we have to be careful about, so the question is that 45 decibels, or whatever number you've selected as your audible sound level at people's homes, is that protective of the wind turbines far enough back to make sure you're also protected for infrasound low frequency noise? And I would put you that it is. So again, let's take a look at some, Rob showed you some of the research he did. In fact, the paper that Rob published on low frequency noise infrasound for wind turbines in Texas was one of the first papers out there that anybody had looked at low frequency noise infrasound. Since that time, there have been a number of publications I'm going to take you through. This is what I'd like to do is, again, show you some of the state government agency reports, not just academic reports or consulting reports. This is a big study that was just completed in Germany, where they measured low